Fears to Fathom describes itself as an episodic psychological horror based on alleged true stories told from the perspective of the ones who survived. Developed by Rail Studios, it has released fairly consistently since 2021, with 5 games currently available at the time of making this video, and since I've garnered a recent fascination in short-form horror games, it seemed like an inevitable series to dive into. Stylized with the lo-fi, grainy analog aesthetic currently popularized within the indie horror game landscape, the Fears to Fathom games are disarmingly simple yet efficiently provocative, and rely heavily on an impending sense of dread that's initially difficult to identify on the surface. The first game in the series, and the focus of this video, don't worry, I will cover all of them in due time, is the free-to-play Home Alone, which depicts a 14-year-old boy called Miles who, would you guess it, is left home alone while his parents are out of town for work. While it's difficult to sell the game on paper because it sounds like a familiar horror setup that's as basic and rudimentary as can be, the beauty of Fears to Fathom is its sheer minimalism and naturalistic execution that palpably captures the reality of its supposed true stories. By forgoing, let's call it, conventional dramatic liberties, it takes on a similar rawness to Brian Bertino's true crime-inspired The Strangers, in how coldly incidental and random the entire scenario feels, thus conveying a frank and visceral authenticity that any one of us could be confronted with at any point in our lives. Home Alone is a raw but fittingly blunt introduction to the concept. While it is rather cumbersome and stiff to control, you can complete the game in about 15 minutes, and if you lose, it literally boots you out of the game with a certain brutal rejection that's in line with the rawness of its horror. Now, to be honest, I don't usually find these types of horrors terribly effective because I'm just desensitized to the very concept. However, I will admit I was left profoundly surprised at how much it got under my skin by doing so little, because of the exact conditions I was under while playing the game. Now, before we dive into the madness, this video is sponsored by Fume. If there is one thing in life that is constant, it is battling a bad habit, and for me, I have an unconsciously unhealthy obsession with biting my nails and skin to deal with boredom, stress, and anxiety. Thankfully, Fume has provided a satisfying solution with their flavored air device designed with magnetic fidget properties that allow me to channel my urges into something more calming and distracting. Fume's award-winning flavored air delivers great taste without any harmful chemicals. There's no smoke, no vapor, no nicotine, no batteries, just natural flavor through premium wood and weighted metal for quality comfort and portability. This means you can practically bring Fume anywhere, which is perfect for me when in social situations or feeling any stress or anxiety throughout my day. It's genuinely satisfying and surprisingly soothing to play with the magnet, clicks, the snaps, and just the feel of its weighted balance. Over 500,000 people have already made Fume part of their daily routine, and I totally get why. It's simple, satisfying, and doesn't come with any of the downsides of smoking or vaping. Fume continually invests in third-party studies to ensure the safety of their products, and right now, if you order the Journey Pack using my code ryanhollinger, you'll get a free Fume topper. So if you've been thinking about changing your habits, this is the perfect first step. Simply go to tryfume.com/ryanhollinger or scan the QR code on screen to grab yours today. For context, it was around 9 PM on a Friday night. I was alone in my house in the attic where my office is, and not only was I wearing noise-cancelling headphones, but I was vaguely aware of the fact that my front door was still unlocked. I live in what I like to think is a pretty safe and relatively populated neighborhood, and my downstairs lights were on anyway, so the chances of someone dangerous just walking right into my house, especially when my neighbors were home right next door, did not concern me in the way it really should have. It was only after hitting the harrowing crescendo involving an intruder in Home Alone did I realize just how fiercely and stupidly I took the safety and security of both my home and neighborhood for granted. The game opens by conditioning you to that same unassuming ignorance, as you can freely wander the house, go out into your garden, come back inside, even forget to close the door, and never once did it cross my mind in the game that anyone could just slip right in. Hell, both your front and back doors are unlocked anyway, so even when you're upstairs, theoretically you're inviting trouble into your life. Yet, in typical human fashion, nobody ever expects it's going to be them. Home Alone benefits from being aggressively ordinary. The lighting and decor are muted and mundane, the ambience is subtle and naturalistic, and your objectives aren't exactly meaningful. Echoing my own awful sleep cycle, the game sees you awaken to text messages from your mum saying she and your father will be home soon, while your best friend apologetically cancels plans to come over, leaving you to eat an entire lasagna alone, do your homework and go to bed, you know, your typical riveting Monday night. If you're going in blind, you'll have no idea just what exactly the danger is, but knowing that something is abound and keeping it at the back of your mind, it gives the ambience of the outdoors and quiet empty house a feeling of intense desolation and unease. While you can hear cars drive by your house and distant neighbours faintly in the background, it distinctively gives you a feeling of separation from the rest of the world. The atmosphere might be calm, but the disposition it gives you feels chilling and tense. In fact, if you're keenly observant, one peculiarity that heightens it even further is a mysterious figure briefly lurking around your driveway that, for all you know, could just be some random neighbor out for a walk. You will inevitably start to feel an itching vulnerability, and during dinner, again, if your senses are heightened out of fear, you might even see footsteps ascending the stairs, which will either prompt you to ignore it as just your tired mind playing tricks on you, or if you're bold enough to investigate, you will find nothing. You finish dinner, throw down the tray, saying you'll clean it later when you know you won't, finish your homework and go to bed, only to awaken a few hours later in need of water. The streets are dormant, there's absolute silence, all presence of life is gone. You're either now in a dream or a waking nightmare. Ominous music begins to ramp up more and more as you get water from the fridge, with the house only being lit by the faint moonlight. But as you ascend the stairs back to bed, your mother sends a text message from your neighbour that someone is lurking outside the front door. You don't have to look, you can be smart and immediately hide, but who am I kidding? My stubborn curiosity got the better of me. Peeking out the window, a strange man is starkly illuminated by the porch light with an alarming red. And the thing is, you can get his attention, either intentionally or not, if you make a noise into your actual microphone. But for the life of me, I couldn't get it to work. There is an achievement for it, and like I said about getting booted out of the game if you die, it adds a real visceral, meta, immersive quality to it. It was at this point I was frighteningly reminded of my own real-world circumstances and felt that palpable chill of someone just randomly watching me from outside my own house. Of course, I went to lock the door at this point, or at least I think I did, but I'm pretty sure I still forgot to lock the back door. It is an excellent example of why less is always more in horror. It works out of a purity that can only be obtained naturally, and the game follows this up further by leaving you to instinctively decide what to do next. Perhaps the most interesting detail about the game is how it rewards your logic. At the end, you hear a window break, followed immediately by the front doorbell ringing, and the stress causes several thoughts to run through your mind, most notably, wait, did the perpetrator break through a window, or are they at the front door and trying to bait you by breaking a window? It immediately fed on my panic and sensitivity towards what was happening in that very moment, but before I could question it further, the doorbell rings again. Someone is clearly at the front door, and a text from your mom tells us our neighbor Paula is outside, so impulsively I think to run for the front door because help and safety is merely out of reach. However, as I make it to the stairs, Oh right, the broken window. The intruder is inside the house. If you go for the stairs, it doesn't matter. Your slow walk pace means it's impossible to descend the stairs before the intruder rushes towards you. Instead, upon rebooting the game after losing and replaying the scenario, if you just take a moment, you can see it all play out in real time. You can see your neighbor walk over to your house. You can see the intruder prime to attack the moment you reach the stairs. But as gaming instincts dictate, you likely feel a need to trigger the intruder to finish the game. But here's the thing, you don't. Like I said, the game rewards rationality, instinct, and perhaps most importantly, the thing that frustrated me the most about playing it, patience. If you simply wait in your room, in fact, you don't even have to hide under the bed again, eventually the police will arrive like your mother said. You never have to get into any dramatic chase like the other trillion horror walking simulators out there. All you have to do is wait. Help is literally just around the corner. Simply put, it's rather clever, dare I say subversive, because when the sirens and blue and red lights of police cruisers arrive, there's a tangible sigh of relief that's honestly not often felt in games like this. The comforting music reassures you that everything will be okay, no big dramatic cliffhanger. Granted, given the vein of its realism, I would be wrong to call this a resolution because, after all, the intruder does get away. There's still the uncertainty of if and when they might even come back, who they were, and if the trauma will make it impossible to ever truly live at peace in this house anymore. Nonetheless, the horror is over for now. You can check your parents' bedroom to find their window smashed open, then go downstairs, open the door, embrace your neighbor, and wait for your parents' return. It's partially why stories like this get shared on Reddit, Let's Not Meet, and Creepypasta all the time. It brings cautionary knowledge to real-world horrors we do not think relate to us, but just as easily could. It shows us how reality is stranger than fiction. But also, in a way, it brings an essence of comfort knowing you're not alone in the fears you're left to fathom. Hey folks, I want to give another shout out to Fume for sponsoring this video. You can check out Fume by scanning the QR code or going to tryfume.com/ryanhollinger. There is a link in the description box below. Thanks again for watching, see you next time.